Hi, folks. I'm coming to you on July 4th, 2024, because it seems to me that on this July 4th, at this particular political moment, it's important for us to pause and think for a moment, and particularly to think about the revolution, the American Revolution, and what it has to say to us in this precise moment. What we are celebrating in one way or another today is the 13 colonies declaring independence from Great Britain and pulling apart and ultimately creating a new nation. Now, I want to talk for just a few minutes about what they did and how they did it, because that's, I think, what will speak to us today. Right now, and I'm doing this in part for this reason, the internet, newspapers, social media, what we're seeing, and in my case, feeling, is a stream of knee-jerk panic politically. Right? People saying, drop Biden as a candidate. Let's get a new candidate. Disaster. We're done. We're doomed. In a variety of different ways. In some cases more sophisticated than others. But the fact of the matter is, every time I mistakenly open social media, that's what I see. And I think it's tempting to fall in line with that, because I will admit I'm anxious about this particular moment. But this is a particular moment, and what we have ahead of us is months before the election and a long time after that. So stay with me here for a moment and let me say what the revolution has to say to us given our moment of panic. First of all, the revolution was not born of impulsive panic. It was not a knee-jerk action. It took planning. It developed over years. And even at a point when a number of people, enough people came together that they believed that independence was the proper way to go, they still talked amongst themselves, came up with plans, thought about the moment, and thought ahead. Now, the Declaration of Independence is one obvious way in which they did this, right? The Second Continental Congress, room full of elite white guys, they debated independence. They decided that they would declare independence. They came up with the Declaration of Independence as a way of stating to the world and the colonies what they were about to do. That was a process they worked their way towards, and it had already been beginning before the Second Continental Congress met. But here's another thing that I think is really important that is not commonly known about declaring independence. And that is, at the same time as independence was being discussed on an elite level, there were local community discussions of independence. And I'm getting this information from Pauline Maier, historian Pauline Maier's wonderful book, American Scripture. I encourage you to find it. It's really readable. It talks about the making of the Declaration, and there's a chapter in it titled, I believe, The Other Declarations. And what she talks about is the fact that in town meetings and other sorts of local meetings, localities around the colonies, people came together and debated independence. They came together, and I'm not just talking about elite people, I'm talking about town meetings. People came together and discussed this moment, a momentous moment, what it meant, how they felt about it, and if they thought it should be done. And then they wrote their own kind of declarations of independence, which they sent along to the Continental Congress. My point here is not only that there was thought and planning, even with a decision that was very obviously momentous at the time, breaking away from the mother country. This was not a thing that was done, right? These are colonies, and granted they were prosperous colonies, but still, planning, thought, and also on a local level, planning and thought. Community. The revolution, we tend to think of it, I think, as, 30 guys wearing white stockings in a room making a variety of noble gestures about one political thing or another. But the revolution was a popular revolution, and by popular I mean of the people. Right? It was fought by colonists, ultimately Americans. That's who had to carry out and fight that revolution. We're just colonists. The same people who came together in communities and thought about this, they then came together again on a local level to do what they felt needed to be done. Now, not only was community important, but, and I think this is important because there are some people amongst us today who have a knee-jerk, impulsive, I don't want to say desire, impulse to think violence. Even as they were making this crucial decision, the colonists were not thinking, okay, bloodshed, revolution equals bloodshed, chaos, panic. As independence was being debated and decided on and the Declaration was being worked on a state level, state governments were crafting their own new constitutions. They can see that a revolution is lurking. And what do? They create new governments on a state level to replace the hole left by the removal of the royal government. They created order. They made plans. They crafted constitutions that they felt solved some of the problems that had been created and then carried out by the king and parliament. But what they did was, again, communities planning and then crafting orderly ways to find their way out. Now, on this July 4th, I suppose in this moment, that's part of what I want to drive home. Please don't fall into a place of panic. I understand why. I'm having moments myself. So I'm not saying that we should all just twiddle our thumbs and sit back because everything's fine. Maybe I'll make another message about that. Everything is not fine. Really. And we can talk about that another time. But that said, it's particularly in those moments when you think, uh-oh, I don't know where things are going and I'm worried. Those are the moments when you need to slow down and just think about options, not toss off crazy ideas, not jump on a wagon before you even know where the wagon is heading. As a political historian, I can tell you that knee-jerk, impulsive political decisions do not lead towards good solutions. Historically speaking, not a good thing, right? You don't win political battles with panic. You win them with planning and wisdom. That's what I'm encouraging us to do. I have no idea, as none of us do, where we're headed, what's going to happen tomorrow, never mind in a month. But what I do know is certainly we have months more in which we're going to have to think about this, that we should be thinking about it calmly and together, that yes, we should be debating different options, but not in a mode of panic. We should think about this day that represented, yes, a revolution, yes, an extreme action, but also something that took thought and planning and community in a way that ultimately had a wonderful outcome. So that's what I think the revolution has to say to us today. Declaring independence as a process, as a spirit, that's a good model of sorts for what to do when you feel that you're in a crisis and you have to act. And you want to come out of those actions together with a better foundation, with a new thing that you've constructed, or a nice version of the old thing that you've constructed. That's how to be thinking about this moment. So this is a Please Don't Panic July 4th video for you. Please take it in the spirit that it's intended. I will now embarrassingly add a commercial advertisement for the end. For the last 3, almost 4 years, every Friday morning, I've had a webcast called History Matters, sponsored by the National Council for History Education. So I think we're on our 223rd straight episode. And every week, Friday morning, 10 o'clock Eastern Time, we come together and talk about what history has to tell us about the current political moment. A real community has come together over those 222 previous episodes. It represents the kind of community spirit and thinking and engagement that we should encourage. that matters in this moment. So I encourage you, every Friday, it begins at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. I speak for a half hour. We open things up and have a group discussion for a half hour. And then after that, we actually have an after party in which we can talk about whatever we like. I invite you to come and become a member of that community, because I think now and going forward, communities are really going to matter to engage in the conversation of democracy, because it should be a conversation. So join me, and here is where you should go, at ncheteach.org/conversations. That's ncheteach.org/conversations. Go to that URL, you'll be able to find me and find the link and just beam right in. You don't have to sign up for anything, no commitment. I feel like I'm now have become a sort of 1-800 TV commercial, but you could just join for the moment that community and see what it's about, and at least be part of a community discussion about the moment. We need to have a lot of community discussions, and we're going to need more to come. So whether you do it with me or somewhere else, find a way to do that. Okay, folks, wishing you a wonderful 4th of July, and perhaps I'll see you here at some point in the future. Maybe tomorrow morning, Friday morning. Bye, folks.